Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm just waiting for a few more people to drop in. I can see there's a few more people joining now, but we'll just give it a few more seconds and then we'll kick things off. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that we are going to be recording the webinar today. So you will also be able to share this with any colleagues or look back on it. We'll share it with everybody who's in the room today. In the meantime, whilst we're going through today's webinar, feel free to ask any questions. There's a chat function at the bottom of Google Meets. It's actually the first time that we're using Google Meets for a webinar, so it's a bit of an experiment. So feel free to ask some questions and I'll be happy to answer them as we go. So let's kick things off. What I'm going to do is I'm sharing my screen with you. I'm just going to show you a little bit of a highlight of what we've been up to this year. Also going to take a little step back in time and run you through the origins of Aprao and how we got here. But then I'm going to look at what features we've released, and I'm going to show you how to use those features as well. So it's partially the purpose will be to obviously highlight what's new in Aprao, and as well as that, to actually show you how to use those features in the software. So particularly at that point, as I say, any questions, just use the chat function at the bottom. I'm going to say hello in there so that you can see where it is. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to start off with something I discovered the other day, which absolutely blew my mind, which I'm very happy about. So this is the growth in the number of appraisals that have been going through Aprao each year. So I posted on LinkedIn earlier this week because I realized it was 22,500 financial appraisals have been appraised in Aprao this year. That's now gone up, as you can see, to around 23,000 at the moment, with another week or so to run until Christmas or the end of the year, a couple of weeks. That figure is likely to increase, but it's really amazing to see from 2019, where we had 1,500, which I remember being ecstatic about. I remember sharing that figure with somebody in a pitch deck. Last year, 9,500, again, an amazing number, but now 23,000 projects which have been appraised this year in Aprao. So when you start thinking about that, that's obviously a lot of projects. I know a lot of people in this in the webinar today are customers of Aprao. So obviously, thank you very much for your contributions and for being a customer, because you played a part in that 23,000. So this is something I've not really shared with many people before. This is taking a step back. I mean, we're reaching the 4-year point since we started working on Aprao, and this screenshot is almost 4 years old. What you can see here is what our first mock-up of what Aprao was going to look like, or actually first concept of what Aprao may look like. This is very basic. This was before we had built any software. This is just done on, I think it was like Photoshop, but you can see the initial concept was there at the beginning. For those of you that don't know, before setting up Aprao, my background was in development finance. So I was a lender of development finance, and I was looking at projects on a daily basis. So I had projects coming to me, developers coming to me, approaching me for finance, and they were all sending me their financial analyses. Generally, these were Excel spreadsheets, as I'm sure most people here today were using prior to using Aprao. And it just struck me that it was mad that there was no consistency and there was no industry standard for the way that sites were being appraised. So basically, everybody was trying to achieve the same thing, approaching us looking for finance, but they were all going about it in a totally different way. So I started to think about it from a lender's perspective, and we thought, well, what could we do which would ultimately make the developer's life easier, the lender's life easier, and to be honest, any stakeholder involved on the project. So the idea there was to create a new industry standard of appraisal, which could be created and then shared with all stakeholders on the project. So you can see here, even on this early wireframe, we had the right idea of being able to print, export, or share this, and also being able to see all of your different appraisals and reports. So it's quite a different view, but this is where we are today. So as I said, we've now got 23,000 projects being appraised per year in Aprao. We've got people using Aprao on any device. We got like this picture here being used on an iPad, talking to a firm of valuers which use Aprao. The entire firm are now running their valuations on Aprao out and about on the road, versus their old legacy methods where they would have to run back to the office after an inspection to complete the appraisal or the report back at their desk. So again, massive time saving, massive benefit there. And most importantly, it allows them and anyone else using it to be working in that consistent format and really mitigate the risks that are found with Excel spreadsheets. So everything in here, you're never going to overtype a formula. You're never going to, you're not going to ruin someone else's formatting. It's all a robust framework which will allow you to look at sites on a like-for-like basis. So when I was preparing for this presentation, I was going back through our release notes. So we keep a log of all of the releases that we've made, software releases throughout the year. Amazingly, we've actually released 62 versions of Aprao this year. So because it's cloud-based, you don't see all of those versions. You don't have to like install anything. It literally just happens. We release the software. The next time you log in, you just have the latest version. Now, not all 62 releases have been things that you would see and notice. There's lots of security updates, efficiencies and speed and compatibility with different browsers, etc., which is happening all the time. But there are some major things that we have worked on, some of which have only been released this week. So I'm going to drill down into those, and then I'm going to show you how to use them in Aprao. So the first thing that we did, it was launched early in this year, was the ability to add enriched project data to your projects. So this is basically a chance for you to capture any other information which is not financial. This is a big step, because one of the things that we hear a lot is around the issue with attachments on emails, or knowing which was the latest version of something, or where are the documents for this. So we introduced a way for Aprao to become this single source of truth, not only for the financials, but also for the other elements on the project as well. So you can see from this screenshot here, we've got some summary metrics, we've got the site history, and then we've got the document storage. So the documents here, I'll show you when we're in the software, but we can link directly to things like the planning information, design and access statements, proposed drawings, etc. The next thing that we introduced very early on this year as well is team collaboration. This came around about the same time that we added that enhanced project information. And the team collaboration introduced this extra board over on the left. So now we have a personal board and a team board. The beauty with this is when a project is moved over to the team board, it's visible and editable by everybody on your team. So this is designed for internal collaboration, where you can share projects with the rest of your team. When it's in here, it means that you don't need to be sending attachments or sending links to appraisals. You can literally work together seamlessly as a team. So you can see down here, for example, in my team notes section, there's a back and forth between myself and Jonathan where we were working on some numbers, and you can just see easily who's done what, and we kept that documented within the project screen. We spent a lot of time over the summer working on the cash flow forecasting features. So some of the changes that we brought in, you will notice, and some were behind the scenes. But basically, we redesigned all of the algorithm that sits behind this to make it very scalable and robust. So now we can run cash flows of up to 10 years in length in Aprao. There's also various other features which we released into the cash flow itself. So advanced cash flow interest modeling to help you easily calculate how much interest is going to be accrued on a project. We've also got some more flexibility around how equity is used within the cash flow. Most lenders want you to put that in upfront. Other lenders are not so fast, or you might have a revolving credit facility where the full facility amount could be used. So we've introduced ways using the switch at the top here to allow us to model out those different scenarios in the cash flow forecast. Now, the lovely Excel, it gives me a headache just looking at this, but it has been requested and we did build it. So we have an Excel export from the cash flow, which in Aprao, which has been released this year. We did have for those who've been customers for a while now, we did have a very rudimentary Excel export a while ago. But this year we took it to the next level and we've really gone to a detailed breakdown. And this has really been driven by detailed financial requirements by finance directors or accountants or anyone who really insists on going back to Excel. It allows Aprao to actually create the financial analysis and the cash flow, but then it to be easily exported in one click. So this mirrors all of the cost categories and cost headings that are within the appraisal itself. The beauty of this is that now you can, I mean, we've got businesses, customers of ours, where they have their full business cash flow and their development appraisals are only part of their business. So basically they're able to export this into Excel and put it into their business cash flow once a month, and it keeps their overall business cash flow up to date. One of our most advanced features which we have released this year is around the finance. So it's one of the biggest headaches in development is financial, like genuinely looking at the finance on projects. So how much money can I borrow? What's my interest likely to cost me? How long do I need to borrow the money for, etc. So we've built many ways for you to calculate your interest within Aprao quickly and accurately. And that can be quickly without doing a cash flow forecast with an advanced S-curve algorithm, or it can be a detailed cash flow forecast which links back to the finance and will actually tell you how much interest you will be needed for the project. We've also introduced some new ways to handle fees in the cash flow as well, and I'll come back to those in a minute when we jump into the software, which is now. So I'm going to switch over my screens and I'm going to head over to Aprao, and I'm actually going to create a new project showing one other feature which I hadn't shown you on that breakdown. So most of you already know this, but for those who don't, this is the Aprao board. So I've got my personal board and my team board. So in this example, my team board set up for projects which want to go to my board for sign off. So I've got 3 columns in here. Number 1 is deals that are ready for board review. Number 2 is approved deals, and 3 is live projects. On my personal board, I use this to get sites ready before I send them over for sign off. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, take this project here. So this project is a site for 20 apartments in central London. There's also 5 affordable units within here. This captured all of the important information. So I've got the rich text or the enhanced project information, which you can see here. So I've got the summary, the site history, and some documents. With these documents, they've been linked to, for example, the planning website. So when I click onto this, it takes me straight through to the planning for that project. Same for things like the drawings. So that document is unavailable. But let's see if this one works. Nor is that one. But basically, we can link this to various documents in various locations. So if you've got cloud-based document storage, you can just link it straight to that. I've also got a place here to capture the team notes, which I mentioned earlier. And then what we've got at the bottom are the list of appraisals. So on this particular project, I had an appraisal for an initial review, one where the planning got updated, and then the final appraisal. Now, we'll come into the appraisal in a minute, but this was just a quick preview of what that looks like. So we've got this project. It's progressed through my stages on my board from a new site to review, been under review, and now it's ready for sign off. I'm going to send this over to the team board. So I press send to team board. This project has now moved over to my team board here. So this is now ready for review. I'm going to click into it, and I'm just going to show you through this appraisal, which we are sending for sign off. So within the appraisal itself, we've got the headings along the top, which we have made some changes to this year as well. So we've renamed sales to revenue because we've introduced some new revenue types. Build, other costs, finance, etc. have remained roughly the same though. On the right-hand side, we've got key metrics, which update in real time, and they show us all of the key metrics on the project. We've then got the summary appraisal, and that's showing us our back of the envelope view of the project. Again, this is visible at any time. It can also be collapsed if you don't want it there. And we've also then got the residual site value where we set our target return, and that drives the residual value within the site purchase screen over here. So I've got my project information here. I've got those notes, which I mentioned earlier with the dialogue between myself and Jonathan. So, okay, I'm just going to pause for a second. And we've had a question around documents. So Ted's asked, how do we put documents into this section? The documents are put in purely by hyperlink. So if you've got like Dropbox, for example, you can put a project here, put a title here. We then use this button up here, and we can simply link to that document from here. So sometimes it might be broken down on a document by document basis, or equally, if you use Dropbox, you might just put a simple link that says Dropbox link. We highlight this, we hyperlink that, and that can go to the Dropbox folder where all of your project information is stored. That way, when this project is on your team board or on your board, you're able to have all of the documents immediately linked from there, and it's that single source of truth for everyone. So Ted, I hope that answers your question. Now, moving on to the revenue side of things. So one of the big changes are in the revenue section, which I didn't mention earlier, is the introduction of different types of revenue. So we now have residential, commercial, and income. The great thing with income is it's a chance to capture any additional income which is not considered a unit. So that might be the sale of a freehold, it may be parking spaces, it may be some optional extras or upsells. It's totally flexible. It could also be rental income, by the way, as well, because this will allow us to easily spread this rental income or income in the cash flow however we want. So it's very flexible. So anything in residential or commercial is treated as a unit. Anything in income is not a unit and can be spread freely in the cash flow. I'm going to delete that just for now. And I'm going to show you what we've got in here. So here what we've got is the breakdown of our open market residential. I've got 10 one-bedroom apartments and 10 two-bedroom apartments. I can now easily jump in and manipulate the number of apartments here. When I do so, that immediately updates the total value because we're changing the number of units. And you can see in real time that also updates the key metrics. This is a great way to run some different scenarios on projects though. So let's say you're looking at potential planning and you think there's a potential to get an extra two-bedroom apartments. You can see the knock-on effect and what that does on your numbers. Previously, that would have required an extra step in the build cost. So we've added the area with the sales, and then in the build cost, we'd need to manually reassign area. But I'm going to show you one of the features I'm most excited about, which was only released last week. And that is linking of our build costs to our revenue. So now what we can do is we can say, before it looked like this, we had our total available area from the revenue section, and then you could set the gross to net ratios and number of units. But now what we can do is we can simply select the open market residential. That automatically knows the total area coming in from the revenue section. We can say that there's a 20% surplus area that needs to be built because these are apartments. So I've changed that to 120% of the net area for the gross. And it also knows how many units there are. I can now set the build cost on a pounds per square foot basis. So for example, I can set that to £300 per square foot, or I could do a build cost on a per unit basis. Now, when I go back to the revenue section and I'm adjusting the number of units, this is now going to automatically update the build cost data. So I don't need to go back and change that. It's automatically going to be updated as the gross area changes or the net area changes here from the residential income. So it's a very, very smart feature. So coming back to the revenue, We've got our open market residential and our affordable residential in here. This drives our total areas, our gross development value, and our net development value. Then back to the build cost, we can see here that we've got it broken down as preliminary costs, as open market build costs, and affordable build costs. So I've linked the affordable here to the affordable revenue. Then what we've got is our other costs. So I've broken this down as just professional fees, statutory cost, and marketing costs. You can create as many cost groups as you want in other costs. And within that, you can have as many line items as you wish. So you can really go to town here and build out a detailed model if required. Now with the finance, I'm going to come back to it in a minute. I'm just going to go to the site purchase first of all. So we've set our target return at 20% of total costs. You can easily toggle this between total costs or as a percentage of the gross development value down here. I'm going to put my target return at 20% of total development costs here though, and you can see that this is driving the residual value here. So originally we were paying £12 million for the site, but actually what this is telling me is that we should be paying £9 million for the site. I can apply that number in. When I do so, you can see my return on cost, which was my target, is now 20%, which matches the target down here. So now we've got this set up, I'm going to come back to the finance and show you a few things that we've done in here. So first of all, we've got forward funding. So what forward funding does is it allows you to remove certain elements from the finance that don't need to be funded. So here what I've done is I've removed the affordable residential and affordable and the build cost for the affordable. So the revenue from the affordable and the build for the affordable, because essentially this is going to be funded by a housing association and they're buying those units off of us. And that money is not then considered part of the finance agreement. So then what happens next is for the remaining, for the balance of the finance, this is updated in, this is all then for the open market units here. We've just got one extra person joining. In these extra, in the open market units here, we can then see a few things. Actually, before I dig into that, I'll just draw your attention to this. This is the summary of the finance breakdown. So we can see what's being forward funded here. We can then see the finance summary. So we can see the total development cost of £24 million. We can see the total borrowing of £19 million. And then we can see the equity contribution going in of £4.3 million. So this is always a really good place to bring your attention back to and see how those funds are being split and where the finance is coming from, and obviously how much equity is going in. So I'm going to start with the senior debt. I've set my senior debt at 80% of total development costs. Because we forward funded the affordable though, that's 80% of the open market development costs. We can also set the facility as a percentage of the GDV. So I could easily set that at 60% of GDV if I wanted to. I'm going to put that back to 80% of cost for now though. For the different types of interest, we've got three options. We've got retained, rolled up, or serviced. Now, very simply, retained is where the bank will lend you a certain amount of money to cover the interest costs, so you don't need to fund it out of your own pocket. Rolled up is where the interest is calculated generally monthly, but only paid back at the end of the project. And then we've got serviced interest, and that's where it's paid on a monthly or quarterly basis out of your pocket throughout the project. But this is less commonly used in development. So with retained interest, what happens is we've got the total facility, which is 80% of cost. We've got an interest allowance of £1.25 million. And then we've got the available balance that is available to use towards the project itself. The interest is being calculated using this section down here. So I'm calculating the interest based on drawn balance. So that's basically we're only paying interest when the money is being used. We've got an interest rate of 7% per annum per year. And then what we are doing is we're using the cash flow to calculate the interest cost. So the actual interest cost coming in from the cash flow is £1.2 million. So 1.215. And then what we do up here is I've just rounded it up because generally the bank will round that up to a nearest kind of round number. And you can actually use this input to match your bank's terms. So if the bank's giving you a facility indication with an interest allowance, you can just match that straight away in Aprao. That's a new feature for this year. We've then got the finance fees, where we can have commitment fees, exit fees, any other fees. By default, they are considered paid as equity. And then if it is an exit fee, that's not paid by equity. It's not paid by the loan. It's actually paid from the sales proceeds. So we can use this toggle, and that's going to have an impact on the financing requirements for the project. Now, I've got a mezzanine lender in the mix as well on this project. So this is a 1.5 million facility. The interest on this one is rolled up. The interest rate is 1% per month. The interest is on the drawn balance and it's being calculated from the cash flow. This is giving us an estimated interest cost of 330,000. So I've built that out very quickly. And now what we can see is this is all feeding into our project here. But what we need to do is we need to apply some things to the cash flow. So the open market, so this is the cash flow tool first and foremost. We've got a few smart things that we've added this year too, as I mentioned earlier, the detailed export into Excel. We've also got a full screen mode. So when I do that, it takes up the full screen. It gives you a bit more space. Ideally, this is ideal if you're working on a laptop or on an iPad with a smaller screen. It definitely makes a lot of sense. When we scroll down, we can see any costs which have not been allocated because they're marked in orange. So the only thing left to allocate in this cash flow is the open market sales. So what I can do is I can open the spread tools here. I can scroll along until my build finishes. So I can see here that my open market build is actually finishing. My open market build is finishing in month 20. So let's say we're going to start selling these units from month 18, and we expect to sell, let's say, 3 units per month. When I hit the tick, you can see over on the right here that those units have been allocated on a monthly basis. So we've got 3 units, 3 units, 3 units, and the cash flow has been automatically extended until all of those units are sold. As an alternative method, we can also put the start month and then the length of the sales phase. So you might have a 6-month sales phase, and then Aprao is going to automatically spread the sale of those units out over that sales phase. With the affordable as well, we're going to put that in. Let's put it into month 18 and a sales phase length of 1, because that's basically going to be purchased at the end of the construction on that. So now what we can see is we've got our project IRR at the top, that's 23%. We've got our equity IRR of 59%. And if I scroll down to the bottom, this is where it gets very exciting. Maybe exciting for me, given my finance background. But what we can see is the full equity contribution going in first at the beginning of the project. And then on the site acquisition, the senior debt and the mezzanine are contributing to provide the balance, along with the final bit of equity required to purchase the site. So once the site's been purchased, all of the mezzanine is lent. And then we're looking at the senior debt here, which is going to be funding the project throughout the life of the project. So we can see the interest, which is being calculated monthly, and we can see the loan balance increasing throughout the life of the project. So this increases up until the point when the sales start to come in. So we can see that the peak looks to be here, £15.9 million. And then from month 18, when our sales start coming in, that starts to be repaid. So we've got the 15 reducing down to 11, then down to 7, then down to 3, and then the mezzanine starts to get repaid. And then finally, the equity figure at the bottom turns from negative in brackets into positive with the profit figure at the very bottom. So what we've now got is a full detailed cash flow forecast produced literally in a matter of minutes. I'm just going to remind everyone, feel free to ask any questions. We're nearly done here, but I'm going to show you the templating feature in a bit of detail as a final thing. But whilst I'm doing that, feel free to jump into the chat and ask any other questions that you've got. So this project, what we've done is we've taken it all the way from our personal board over to the team board, ready to review. Once that's approved, we move that onto here. Once the project becomes live, we move it to there. These deal stages are fully customizable though. So you can name them whatever you want, and you can basically customize this workflow to suit your business. Now what I'm going to do though is I'm going to look at the templates. So For my templates, I'm going to start a new project from my personal board. Here's a few different ones that I've been working with in the past. I'm going to use my housing template for this though. So I'm going to create a project from my housing template. When I do that, it creates a new project on my board here. So I'm going to rename the site address. I'll make up address. I'll just call it One New Lane. Go for Surrey. We'll put that in here. I've got my predetermined headings. So in your templates, you can format this as you wish. So you can have your document storage links, you can have anything that you want, but basically get it ready so that when you're starting a new project, you can just very easily create, you can bring in a project summary like this, and you can use it as a template so that all of your projects are working on a consistent basis. It's going to help you just manage all your projects and capture all of that information in the same place. At the top here, don't forget, we can choose our currency and our area that we're working in. And then down at the bottom, we've got our initial appraisal, template appraisal. So here I can rename it from template to my initial appraisal, or whatever we would like to name it. And then I'm going to jump into the revenue section. So for this template, it's a house builder template that I've set up, and I'm happy to share this with anyone afterwards. If you're building houses, it's very useful. I've just set it up as house type A, B, C, D. So that might be 2 beds, 3 beds, 4 beds, 5 beds, for example. I can customize my unit, the area per unit. So I've got it set as 1100, 1250, 1350, and 1450 square foot per unit type. And then we can set either a pounds per square foot for each unit or a pounds value for each unit type. So this is based upon agent's advice. This probably wouldn't be Surrey looking at the values, but this is, let's say our agent has advised sales values to be around 400 pounds per square foot, maybe going up to 450 on some of the better units at the site. We can then come into here and we can change the number of units for each of the unit types. So we might have 10 house type A, 10 5B, 5C, and 10 house type D. I can then do the same for our affordable units, and this is just set up with some standard assumptions. So we might have 5 of each of those. And then when we move over to the build, I've set this up already. So all I now need to do is set my build cost on a pounds per square foot basis. So I've set this at 175 pounds per square foot for the open market build cost. All I need to do now is link that up, and it's taking care of the build cost. For the affordable, let's say our build is slightly lower. Let's say we're working on 150 pounds per square foot because the spec is lower. We can literally link that up like that. The way in which I've set this up now as well is that for all of our other costs, these are now pre-populated because these other costs have now had assumptions based upon either a percentage of GDV or a percentage of build cost. So what we can now do is we can have these in here as standard assumptions. We can still tweak them if we want to, if we've got some more accurate information, or we can also remove them if they're not relevant to this project. When we get to the site value now, based upon all of those calculations, we are able to calculate our residual value. However, I've just seen that we don't have a residual value because our build cost is too high. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up the revenue values because my numbers don't stack up. So we're going to have 500 pounds per square foot for each of these units that we'll just edit like this. I'm also going to increase the number of units on my site, just for demonstration purposes. So now we've got a return on cost of 18%, and let's say we're targeting 15% return on cost. I can now come into the finance section, and this can tell us then how much this site is worth or how much we can pay for the land. I can still make those finance adjustments and finance assumptions if we want to, nice and easily. I can add as many lenders into the mix, and with the template, I can also pre-populate a lot of these things. So we can have it set up so like our professional fees are automatically distributed over the first 6 months of a project. So all we need to do when we come into the cash flow is set the build cost, for example, which I can do like this. Let's put them over the same length of time. I can then set the sales to come in sell them at 2 units per month, and my affordable units to sell all in 1 month. I've now done a full cash flow forecast on a new project, which was created from a template literally in a matter of minutes. So that was a quick run through of everything that we've been doing this year in Aprao. Lots of new features. We've got some very exciting things coming up for next year as well. So we got a question. Steve has asked, can we input different build costs for different units? Absolutely, yes, we can. So in order to show you that, Steve, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this project that I was just working on, which was here, 1 New Lane, Surrey. I'm going to create a copy of this initial appraisal because we're now playing around with it. I don't want to affect my original numbers. So I'm just going to call this one example. In the revenue section, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change how this is structured. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have basically, let's do it like this. We're going to have, these are our open market houses. And then I'm going to create a new residential group for open market apartments. Now, this could obviously be, it doesn't have to be houses and apartments. This could be like house type A with its own build cost, house type B with its own build cost. You can break that down as you want. So here with the apartments, let's just say we're building 10 apartments on the site. Say they're 1,100 square foot per unit, and the value per unit is 300,000. I press that button, I've automatically got 10 units in the appraisal like this. But now my apartments are going to have a different build cost to the houses. So what I can do here is say, these are my apartment build costs, and then link it to the open market apartments. And then I can set my build cost on a pounds per square foot basis. It might be £200 per square foot. I've now done that on the basis of, I've now done that for a different build cost for a different unit type. So as I said, in the revenue, this I've done it as houses and apartments, but this here could just as easily be relabeled to house type A, and all of the house type A sit within this unit group, and all of the build costs for house type A sit within this build cost group. So it's very flexible, and we worked hard to create the framework to allow you to do these things, but without giving you too many restrictions to allow you to customize how you use it and it's suited to your business. So hopefully that answered your question. Are there any other questions before we wrap things up today? Anyone else? Feel free to jump into the chat. Just while I wait for that, any other questions as well? It's worth mentioning, if anyone's got any feedback or product ideas or suggestions, let us know, because we obviously have a product roadmap of things that we're working on and things that we're really, we're strategically working on to take the product in exactly the direction that we want. But that's balanced with feedback points that people raise. So maybe the need for linking, for example, was brought up by some of our customers, and we introduced that into Aprao. It was officially released last week. So it might be something you want to see in the report. It might be a different way of sharing or a different way of running sensitivity analysis. Those kind of things are definitely very relevant. So please feel free to drop us an email at any time. You can do that at support@aprao.com or hello@aprao.com, just with any feedback, and we always take it seriously and we put it into the build of Aprao. Look, for now, I think that's a wrap. Thank you very much for joining this close to Christmas. I really appreciate it. It's been an incredible year. Thank you to everyone who is a customer. If you're not a customer, please feel free to reach out, and we can set you up with a initial 3 weeks trial on Aprao. So please do reach out following the webinar. My name is Daniel Norman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Aprao, and thank you all for joining me today.